Let's take a look at some information and charts on Tezos for Brave New Coin. So starting off with the market cap conversation, Tezos currently has a sub 4 billion market cap, slightly more than PancakeSwap, slightly less than FTX token, OKB, which is OKCoin's exchange token, less than Ethereum Classic, which has been 51% attacked several times, and less than IOTA and BCH SV, which are questionable tokens at best. Pretty far out of the top 20 as well. So you got to ask yourself, is the market cap justified? Why is the market cap floundering? Why is the token floundering relative to everything else? Now, it isn't floundering. If you just look at the USD chart, it's doing quite well. But the question is, why isn't it performing like everything else is? Comparing this to EOS slightly, looking at the Tezos Foundation holdings, they have 1.17 billion in holdings, most of which is Bitcoin by percentage. So the foundation holdings are less than the total market cap. They're about a fourth of the total coin market cap. Always an interesting comparison. What you don't want to see is the coin market cap much lower than what the foundation has, because then it's like, what are they holding out on? Why aren't they investing, right? Why aren't they doing something for the ecosystem? And this is the biannual March Tezos Foundation update. You can read it in its entirety, should you so desire. To me, this is always the most important thing. How much money are they holding? What are they doing with it? That sort of thing. If we look at the Tezos validator list, yields for the most part are around 5% with a 10 to 15% fee. How this works is the validators need at least 10% of the total staked Tezos in the form of a bond. So if they have 100 Tezos bonded, they can have a capacity for up to 1,000 Tezos staking on top of them. And that's where this free space comes up. So you can see these guys need to buy some Tezos for their bond so that they can fully get the proof of stake reward here. I believe that's what the red is, but then this is negative, so I'm not really sure. But that's something to consider when we look at these exchange validators, which are notorious for being behind the curve as far as their bond and needing to buy more Tezos, just because it's always, for any proof of stake coin, this is perpetually going to be the issue. It's easier, less friction. You don't need to know anything to just stick some money in Kraken and start staking Tezos, right? Most people are going to do that. That's how it's going to be, right? Especially if this goes mainstream. Whatever's the simplest solution is what people are going to use. Now, are some people going to investigate and look at yields and fees and think, yeah, it's better to go elsewhere? Of course. But when we look at total staked amount of the various exchanges, most of them are in the top 3. So as far as what they're holding. So this is always going to be an issue with proof of stake, is how do we get coins off of the exchange to stake elsewhere? The incentive has to be so much greater to just get the coins out of these centralized entities, because what you don't want is your entire network, your entire proof of stake network, to be on top of the exchanges, the crypto exchanges, because at that point there's a clear conflict of interest with governance and voting, whatever else, right? If we look at the staking data for Tezos, let me just bring it up here. This is all the usual proof of stake analysis I tend to do. Who's staking, how much, where, why, how many people are participating, what's the adjusted reward. The adjusted reward, according to this website, which means minus inflation, reward minus inflation, is currently less than 1%. Now that may vary dramatically depending on where you go. Looks like 80% of the network roughly is involved in staking. I got skewered on the last video because I said there's not anything else to do with Tezos. That's why everyone's staking it. And I was politely reminded that it's liquid proof of stake, so you can do stuff with it as far as staking the Tezos and then doing something else with it. So anyway, people are staking it. Lots of people are staking it. The rewards are poor, let's be real, relative to DeFi. Not a whole lot of exciting metrics going on here compared to DeFi. And maybe if you are a Tezos maximalist or a Tezos bull, or you think Tezos is undervalued, then you're holding Tezos and you're staking, obviously. But the party isn't really happening on Tezos just yet. If we look at the governance, they've had no issues thus far seamlessly deploying their governance protocol improvements I believe this is still being voted on. I might be wrong. The voting might be over at this point. The most recent update. But in any case, it's certainly one of the better governance solutions. The question is, does anybody care, right? That's the ultimate question. People have to care in order to participate in governance. If they're apathetic, if they don't care that BSC is centralized and on like Binance, right? If people don't care, governance doesn't matter, right? It's that simple, right? And that's what we're seeing now with the BSC stuff. If you're wondering, why is BSC exploding and Tezos isn't, right? Looking at transaction counts and average transaction values, I saw this when I first pulled this up, and immediately it tells me, okay, I need to investigate this further. What's going on here, right? Because you don't have an all-time high in transaction counts for no reason. This is a 30-day average. If we go to just no average, this was the initial coin distribution post ICO, and then this was, recently what's going on. Obviously, something has changed. So I'll talk about that in a second. Average transaction values also quite high relative to where they have been on the increase. So definitely a bullish change for Tezos. And upon further investigation, it looks like they have some sort of DEX or enabled some sort of DEX. And this is the type of thing when I was talking about Decred a few days ago, and I was looking for some metrics or something, some sort of web wallet, web connection. This is what all of DeFi needs. It needs an easy way for people to interact with it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Just copy whatever's already successful, as long as it's secure. Uni, Sushi, Curve, all that stuff, whatever it is, and just migrate it over. So this was a big part of it. They also have this NFT narrative, which is a bit cringe, but their angle is NFTs are cleaner on Tezos because there's no greenhouse gases related to the proof of work side of things. Sure, whatever. I don't think that's going to move the needle for you if you're hanging on to that narrative. I'm not saying climate change isn't real. I'm just saying, again, do people really care when they're minting NFTs? No. What they care about is fees, and are they able to flip the NFT for a profit? So NFT stuff is also coming slowly to Tezos, not because of people suddenly having a conscience about global warming, but because ETH fees were extremely high. I just keep going back to this transaction count. So clearly, not only is this a thing, but people are using it, right? That's what you want to see. Active addresses continue to increase to all-time highs. NVT basically at an all-time low, inverse metric of economic utility. So all the metrics I'm looking at are bullish, for sure. Active addresses up and to the right. Transaction counts up and to the right. Google Trends up and to the right, essentially sitting at elevated levels relative to anything since 2017. So I want to be more bullish on Tezos. The question is, why isn't the chart? The chart kind of looks like EOS if you compare it to EOS, as far as having these spikes and just kind of fading a little bit. Now, it did hit all-time highs a few days ago, whatever, but it has underperformed most everything since January. So if we zoom way out, this is the daily chart on Kraken. We have the 5200 EMAs, VPVR, yearly pivots, volume, RSI. The 5200 crosses have been fairly accurate at getting you in and out of any long trades. So right now it's definitely telling you to be long and hold long, strong support at $4, a little VPVR support, but mostly yearly pivot and 200-day moving average support. And if that should fail, 275 is the largest volume node out of anything on this chart. So I don't think the USD price is going to collapse anytime soon. You did get a lower volume high or a lower volume spike on the higher high in price. So definitely a bearish divergence, which at this point is probably reset. Bearish divergence on RSI as well at the time, which has reset. So this looks okay. It's just very unexciting, right? It hasn't quite been able to hold on to any of its gains. All of 2019 was basically sideways. All of 2020 was basically sideways. And thus far, 2021 has been up relative to the market, with the market, but hasn't really held those highs. If we look at the daily cloud, it's told you to be long since January, re-long in end of March. And this down spike has just been brutal for trend metrics on high time frames. It doesn't know what to do, right? You're supposed to be buying the Kijun. We're way below the Kijun. Now we're back to the Kijun. It's just a mess. on trend metrics on the day. And you can see historically how messy this has been on the daily, just telling you to get in and out over and over again. So cloud may not be the best indicator to use for Tezos, honestly, on a daily chart at least. Now, if we look at the Tezos BTC chart, things start to make a little more sense. It's kind of the opposite of ETH, where to me the ETH-USD chart is much cleaner than the Tezos or the ETH-BTC chart. In this case, the Tezos BTC chart looks much cleaner to me than, the signals anyway, than this. And this is just who knows what, right? Currently, Tezos BTC is in a 133-day range. The previous bottom ranges that looked similar were of similar duration as well. I like that this is sitting just below the 200, just starting to peak above the cloud, and just starting to attempt to break this massive volume node. So if 10,000 sats breaks 11,000 sats, I like 20,000. I like a 2x if it can break this level, but that's a big if. That's definitely a wait and see. You can see how slaughtered it got throughout 2020 against BTC, how it had this zone that it held for a long time, for 8 months, and then it just, right, below the 200, below the cloud, that's all she wrote. So I like 18K, I like 20K, I like 21, whatever this resistance ends up being, somewhere in here, I think is a pretty reliable upside target if this stuff starts to move again. And looking at it against ETH, it's basically at an all-time low against ETH. And we can kind of see why, just fundamentally. Again, ETH's strength was initially ICOs in 2017. That narrative shifted to DeFi, and whatever didn't have DeFi lost against ETH, right? It's really just that simple. Tezos, in my mind, I think in the public's mind, in most people's mind, not something you think of when you think of DeFi. Maybe they're getting there with, however you pronounce this, Kupu swap? I don't know. Reminds me of QP Mayo. Anyway, maybe they'll get there, right? And maybe there'll be a repricing in relative value against ETH. But right now, the market is pretty clearly telling me that it thinks ETH will continue to gain value against Tezos pretty strongly, below the 200, below the cloud. Maybe this ranges out, but it does not look bullish in any regard at all against ETH. So overall, the trend metrics, or the fundamental metrics for Tezos look great, probably better than they've ever looked. Transaction counts way up. Active addresses at all-time high. Finally getting on board the DeFi train. They're attempting, in a marketing sense, to get on board the NFT train. When I see ads for a coin on some news site, it's a bit odd, right? Like, people should know what Tezos is and does without some ad. But hey, maybe that's money well spent. I don't know. ETH-USD or Tezos USD looks good for continuation, bullish continuation. Tezos BTC may have reached its natural end as far as the consolidation at the bottom of a bear trend. It looks like it will potentially attempt a bullish reversal. And Tezos ETH looks quite bearish. It looks like ETH is going to remain the winner. And what I'd look for here, if I'm bullish, is a continued flat bottom or lower lows on a bullish divergence. You can see here there was a really nice Adam and Eve that marked a bullish reversal. Right now there's just nothing, right? It's up, it's down, it's all over the place. There's nothing that I can point to Wyckoff or chart pattern wise that looks like much of anything. And lastly, I'll just mention the non-custodial portfolio management tool Enzyme.finance, where you can participate in or watch me trade ETH and BTC against USD, as well as a vibrant DeFi portfolio where you can see AUM, trades, deposits, withdrawals, performance. It's all there. It's all transparent allocation. So that's all I have for this one. There will be a link for Enzyme in the video description below. Like, dislike, share, subscribe, and happy trading.